Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight: amid stalled talks, President Trump reveals how much time he'll give Russian President Vladimir Putin to prove that he's serious about peace. Trump also proposes to limit international students at Harvard as the administration ramps up its fight with the university. Iris Tao with the latest from the White House. Moscow is reportedly preparing for a summer offensive against Ukraine. At the same time, the Kremlin is proposing a date for a second round of talks with Ukrainian officials. Arian Pazdar has the war update. The Trump administration is taking aim at anti-Semitism on several college campuses nationwide. Now the University of California system could face a federal lawsuit. Christina Corona reports. Doge head Elon Musk criticizes the House-approved spending bill, saying it detracts from his efforts to shrink the government's budget deficit. Luis Martinez has more on that and how President Trump is responding. The State Department announcing visa sanctions on foreign officials over social media censorship. Which countries could potentially be involved? Sam Wong brings us the details.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Amid stalled negotiations, President Trump says he'll know in 2 weeks whether Russia's Vladimir Putin is serious about making peace. And in another hit to Harvard, Trump proposes limiting the number of international students there. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
During a swearing-in ceremony for the new D.C. attorney, President Trump says he's not happy with Russia as they continue to attack Ukraine, as he is trying to secure a ceasefire deal between the two countries. He adds, though, that he's going to find out soon over the next 2 weeks about if Putin is serious about a potential peace deal. Watch.
And do you still believe that Putin actually wants to end the war?
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we're going to find out very soon. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently.
And just yesterday, President Trump on Truth Social says that Putin is playing with fire. And over the weekend, he says that he's absolutely serious about potentially furthering sanctions on Russia. He also says that Putin has absolutely gone crazy. But despite the threat of sanctions as well as congressional pressure for increased sanction package on Russia, President Trump today says he's stopping short of issuing sanctions yet, as he thinks a deal is very close. Watch.
If I think I'm close to getting a deal, I don't want to screw it up by doing that.
While Kremlin first responded to Trump's latest comments, saying that it's an emotional overload after Trump's latest threats, Russia today proposed to Ukraine that the countries hold a second round of peace talks on Monday in Turkey, and that to exchange written proposals for a ceasefire. Meanwhile, on Harvard, President Trump today doubled down on redirecting billions of dollars in federal grants originally for Harvard, now to trade schools. He says they can teach Americans to build motors and cars as well as AI. And President Trump further suggests that Harvard should have a 15% cap on foreign students. Watch.
15%, not 31%. We have people who want to go to Harvard and other schools. They can't get in because we have foreign students there. But I want to make sure that the foreign students are people that can love our country. I want Harvard to do well. I want Harvard to be great again.
And President Trump also compared Harvard with Columbia University, which has agreed to some of the administration's demands amid funding threats. Harvard, though, has broadly refused many government demands, including, for example, that it hand over foreign students' entire conduct records, as well as allow audits to confirm that it has expanded, quote, viewpoint diversity. And just last week, the Trump administration canceled Harvard's ability to enroll foreign students, though that move is currently on hold by a federal judge. The Trump administration on Tuesday also directed federal agencies to cancel all remaining contracts with the university. Back to you.
President Trump says Moscow is playing with fire by intensifying the Ukraine war. Moscow is reportedly preparing for a summer offensive. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the war update.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia is gathering more than 50,000 troops near Ukraine's northeastern Sumy region. Russia appears to be gearing up for a summer offensive in Ukraine. Zelensky says Kiev has taken steps to prevent the soldiers from conducting a large-scale attack. President Trump commented, saying, "What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. He's playing with fire." A Kremlin spokesperson responded, saying Moscow is simply following its own national interests.
Just like the United States, Russia has its national interests that are of primary importance to us.
And also on Wednesday, Russia says officials are ready for the second direct talks with Ukraine. Moscow completed drafting a memorandum for a possible peace agreement.
Our delegation is ready to present this memorandum to the Ukrainian delegation and to provide necessary clarifications during the second round of resumed direct talks in Istanbul next Monday, June 2nd.
According to the Kremlin, the memorandum addresses what Russia calls the root causes of the conflict. And Zelensky is in Berlin on Wednesday, meeting with Chancellor Friedrich Merz. The Chancellor announced the joint production of long-range missiles without range limitation.
There will be no range limitation. This will enable Ukraine to defend itself fully, including against military targets outside its own territory.
Russia's foreign minister says the move builds tensions and prolongs the fighting.
Germany's direct involvement in the war is already clear. Germany is sliding down the same trajectory it followed a couple of times in the last century, down towards its collapse.
It's not clear exactly which long-range weapons Germany is planning on sending. After taking office, Merz announced that his government would no longer publicly detail which weapons Germany would send to Ukraine. He says that's for strategic reasons. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that Hamas's Gaza chief has been killed.
In 600 days of war of revival, we have changed the face of the Middle East. We repelled the terrorists from our territory, entered the Gaza Strip with force, eliminated tens of thousands of terrorists, and took out Dave, Haniyeh, Yehya Sinwar, and Mohammed Sinwar.
Mohammed Sinwar had been one of Israel's most wanted men. Mohammed was the brother of Yehya Sinwar, the Hamas leader and orchestrator of the October 7, 2023 attack against Israel. Israeli forces killed the older Sinwar in Gaza last year. The Israeli army released a video it said showed Mohammed traveling in a car in 2023. Israel has vowed to seize control of Gaza and fight until Hamas is destroyed or disarmed. The terror group continues to hold 58 hostages it kidnapped during its October 7th attack. The Trump administration is taking action against colleges and universities accused of anti-Semitism. A senior Justice Department official says the University of California system is among several schools under investigation. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
A top Justice Department official says the Trump administration plans to sue the University of California over alleged anti-Semitism. Leo Terrell, senior counsel for the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, made the announcement on Fox News. He's leading a multi-agency task force investigating anti-Semitism on college campuses nationwide. Terrell said there will be massive lawsuits against UC schools and other across the country, with federal hate crime charges and Title VII civil rights cases expected. The task force is investigating UCLA, USC, UC Berkeley, Harvard, and 6 other universities. Terrell told Jewish News Syndicate that some schools have resisted the investigations, such as Columbia, George Washington, Johns Hopkins, New York and Northwestern universities, and the University of Minnesota. However, UC officials say they're cooperating and committed to combating anti-Semitism. USC also says it strongly opposes anti-Semitism and has taken steps to protect students, including its large Jewish population. Terrell's group also plans to meet with the mayors of Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Boston. In March, the Education Department warned 60 colleges that they could face federal enforcement if they failed to protect Jewish students. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Doge head Elon Musk says he's disappointed in the House-approved budget package. He and some Senate Republicans want to see larger spending cuts in President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has more on the story.
disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing. I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it could be both. My personal opinion.
As it stands, the reconciliation bill that passed the House floor cuts government spending $1.5 trillion over the next decade. That's far away from the multi-trillion-dollar spending cut goal that Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency had set for itself.
We're proud of what we produced here. We've checked all the boxes. We're all the things that you mentioned in existence, in addition to American energy dominance, investing in our military industrial base. I think arguably it's the most consequential legislation that Congress will pass in many generations, and it's a long time coming.
Although President Trump celebrated the passage of the reconciliation bill through the House floor, he has acknowledged that the bill should be modified in the Senate and is currently negotiating with senators for these changes.
We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill. But the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. We'll have the lowest tax rate we've ever had in the history of our country.
According to the Congressional Budget Office, if the U.S. continues current levels of spending, the national deficit would increase $2.2 trillion every year for the next decade.
President Obama averaged about $910 billion of deficits per year. President Trump in his first 3 years averaged about $810. Then COVID hit, over $3 trillion in deficit. It should have ended there. We should have immediately returned to a pre-pandemic level spending, but President Biden averaged $1.9 trillion of deficits over his 4 years.
Republicans do not need Democrats to pass the reconciliation bill, but have a slim majority in the Senate and in the House, and any changes that are made to the bill in the Senate would reignite debates on the House side.
I don't know how Democrats can't vote for it. If they don't vote for it, they're talking about a 68% tax increase. Remember that. If the Democrats don't vote, it's a 68% tax increase, which is ridiculous.
House Republican leadership has announced that they will begin next week debate on a rescissions package to codify some $9.4 billion in spending cuts found by the Department of Government Efficiency. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio today announcing new visa restrictions targeting censorship. It specifically addresses content regulations that foreign officials impose on American tech companies. NTD's Sam Wong has the details.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Wednesday announced new visa restrictions, this time targeting foreign officials engaged in censoring the speech of American citizens. In a post on X, Rubio says, quote, "Free speech is essential to the American way of life, a birthright over which foreign governments have no authority." The policy addresses international pressure on U.S. tech firms to adopt foreign censorship rules. It also targets foreign officials who threaten or issue arrest warrants on Americans over social media posts. Although Rubio did not name any countries, U.S. authorities have long criticized the censorship imposed by the Chinese Communist regime, particularly in its operations on American soil. Sometimes this comes in the form of lawfare.
Xi Jinping has said the judicial and law enforcement departments should uphold the absolute leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. Researchers, business owners, and academics who expose the truth about a Chinese company, whether it be the party's theft of genomic data, forced labor, or malign trade practices, have suddenly found themselves slapped with frivolous lawsuits.
Other times, the regime deploys agents within the United States to harass China critics, even threatening their family members back home. In 2023, the FBI raided a secret Chinese police outpost disguised as a nonprofit in Lower Manhattan. The Justice Department says the station was involved in helping the CCP locate a pro-democracy activist.
It's about the systematic surveillance and suppression of political dissidents. It's about striking fear in the hearts of critics of the CCP. How can we, the United States of America, claim to be a defender of freedom if we fail to defend freedom fighters within our own borders?
Without naming names, Secretary Rubio put some U.S. allies on notice, saying, quote, "Whether in Latin America, Europe, or elsewhere, the days of passive treatments for those who work to undermine the rights of Americans are over." Sam Wong, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
Coming up, a parent advocacy group is asking the IRS to investigate an elite high school's relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. Arlene Richards takes a closer look. With the Trump administration accusing Harvard of coordinating with the Chinese regime, how has China's influence spread at universities across the country? Jack Bradley brings us the details. The Transportation Secretary provides the latest information on increasing flights in and out of Newark Airport after a series of setbacks. Jason Blair has that story. And police have been granted extra time to continue questioning a suspect after a car plowed into a crowd of soccer fans in Liverpool, England on Monday. Nearly 80 people were reported injured from the incident. Malcolm Hudson has the latest from Liverpool after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A parent advocacy group has asked the IRS to investigate an elite public high school in Northern Virginia. They claim the school has been sharing its STEM curriculum with the Chinese Communist Party while accepting millions in donations. NTD's Arlene Richards has the details.
Parent advocacy group Defending Education is asking the IRS to investigate an elite public high school's nonprofit fund. The fund is registered as a 501c3 nonprofit. The group accuses Northern Virginia's Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology of providing its world-class STEM curriculum to 3 Chinese entities linked to the Chinese Communist Party. In a letter to the IRS on Tuesday, the group states that from 2014 to 2021, the 3 organizations transferred $3.6 million to the school's Thomas Jefferson Partnership Fund. They further claim that the CCP-linked entities have in turn set up at least 20 so-called Thomas schools that operate in China today. According to the group, those transfers should have been treated as taxable business revenue. But the fund used its nonprofit status to pass through business transactions with CCP entities. They're asking the IRS to strip the fund of its tax-exempt status and force it to pay taxes on its business income. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Harvard's ties to the Chinese Communist Party are the latest in a series of headlines about China's influence operations on college campuses. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Harvard's in the spotlight, with the Trump administration working to cut the university's federal funding and revoke its ability to admit foreign students. That's as the administration is accusing Harvard of training a Chinese Communist Party paramilitary group that's sanctioned by the U.S.
And they've even facilitated a training for a paramilitary group affiliated with the CCP.
The group, called the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, is linked to the persecution of a religious minority group in China.
They've also allowed participation with Communist China, who considers the United States one of their greatest enemies.
NTD reached out to Harvard on this, but didn't hear back. For almost 30 years, Harvard's Kennedy School has been training top CCP officials. Last year, the CCP's ambassador was invited to speak at Harvard, and there was a student protest.
CFO, you come to paint the illusion of a prosperous China, but your hands are painted with blood.
That's when a male Chinese student dragged and pushed a female Taiwanese student protester out the hall as she called out the CCP's human rights abuses. She did not press charges, but Harvard police logged the incident as an assault. Lawmakers in Congress scrutinized the school for not taking disciplinary action against the student who put their hands on the Taiwanese student, saying Harvard instead apologized to the Chinese student who dragged the woman out. Another concern here is stolen intellectual property and the spread of Chinese Communist Party propaganda on college campuses. One such example is Confucius Institutes.
The CCP efforts to infiltrate America's universities are intended to manipulate curriculum, suppress academic freedom, and monitor Chinese students here in the United States.
Over the past few years, many colleges have closed and rebranded their Confucius Institutes after facing scrutiny over national security. But it extends further. A 2023 report by the Newark-based Falun Dafa Information Center found that at least 10 top American universities use material for a Chinese language course that defames a persecuted spiritual group in China. This group is known as Falun Gong or Falun Dafa. It's a popular meditation practice based on truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, but it's severely persecuted by the Chinese Communist Party. Across the country, over in Stanford University's own school newspaper accused the Chinese regime of inserting spies on campus, tasked with stealing the school's intellectual property, from the school's research projects to software and other technology.
The Chinese state that uses Chinese students and Chinese individuals inside the United States to violate conflicts of commitment, conflicts of interest, and do things and incentivize them to be able to come back and provide the kinds of technologies and things that they would be otherwise denied through export controls and other areas.
There's a Chinese national intelligence law from 2017 that requires all of its citizens to share intelligence with the CCP.
We found out that all these universities getting money from China, so China tried to influence or steal.
The university told NTD that they are working with federal law enforcement on this, and they also said it's important to distinguish the threats posed by the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people, faculty, and students who are really there to learn and contribute to their communities. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Newark Airport is on schedule to bump up their daily flights in June, according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. The airport recently had to cut flight operations by almost half following staff and communications issues. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that Newark Airport is on track to increase their number of flights by June 15th once runway construction is complete.
I think if all goes well, we may be able to beat the June 15th date.
Newark is one of the busiest airports in the U.S. and a major hub for United Airlines. Since April, Newark has experienced a number of outages, leading to flight delays and cancellations nationwide. Duffy says that the problems are related to a combination of issues.
One, we have a runway that's under construction. Two, we've had a telecom issue. And three, we have a staffing issue with air traffic controllers.
According to Duffy, Newark Airport is handling a reduced number of flights, but expects an increase of about 20% next month.
We've brought that down right now. Departures are at 28 an hour. Okay, when the new runway comes online June 15th, we're going to bump that from 28 to 34.
Duffy says that they plan to do another evaluation in October once more air traffic controllers complete their training to see if they can increase the number of flights again.
We have 16 controllers working the Philly TRACON. However, in training right now, we have 16 controllers in training.
In regards to the telecommunications issues, Duffy says that new fiber cable has been installed.
Verizon has laid a brand new fiber line between Philadelphia and New York. That was the troubled portion of the line.
He says they still need to do testing, but if all goes well, it could be ready by July.
We're dealing with the reality of Newark, the reality that the last administration moved the Newark airspace from N90 down to the Philly TRACON, and these lines were not built. They didn't use fiber. And now we're dealing with that today in real time.
Duffy says he also hopes Congress can act soon to support the Department of Transportation with funds and expedited permitting so they can solve the problems at Newark and similar issues at other airports. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Turning to Liverpool, England, updates on the incident in which a car plowed into a crowd of soccer fans celebrating their team's victory. Police have been granted extra time to question the suspect and say that nearly 80 people have now been reported injured. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson is in Liverpool with more.
British police have been given more time to continue questioning a man arrested after a car ploughed into football fans behind me here during a parade in Liverpool, England. In a statement, police said they are now aware that the crash injured at least 79 people. 7 remain in hospital in stable condition. A 53-year-old man from Liverpool was arrested on Monday on suspicion of attempted murder, reckless driving, and driving under the influence of drugs. Police said they have been granted until Thursday to continue questioning the suspect. They have said it is an isolated incident and is not being treated as terror-related. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer visited Liverpool to speak with police chiefs on Wednesday afternoon.
The scenes on Monday were just awful to see how incredible joy
and an amazing achievement turned to horror in a moment.
Monday's parade celebrated Liverpool soccer team's Premier League victory. Officials estimated that around 1 million people lined the 10-mile-long parade route. Police said the car hit the spectators as the event was winding down. A fan described his first reaction.
No, well, I've seen lots of people running away. I was at the parade down on the road, and then my dad calls me saying, "Oh, this happened," so just want to try and get out as quick as possible because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Police believe the car was able to follow an ambulance crew attending to someone suffering a heart attack after the roadblock was temporarily lifted. In the aftermath, emergency services were seen carrying victims on stretchers and in their arms to nearby ambulances. A fundraising campaign set up for those affected has already raised more than $27,000. The Liverpool Spirit Appeal will provide support to those experiencing physical or psychological injuries as a result of the incident, as well as to community organisations. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, Liverpool.
Coming up, the CDC is no longer recommending the COVID vaccine to healthy children and pregnant women. Author and pediatrician Dr. Joel Warsh joins us to discuss the significance of the decision. And the U.S. and Argentina are calling on other nations to join their efforts to launch a new global health initiative, an alternative to the WHO. Melina Weiskup reports after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Health officials yesterday announced their narrowing recommendations for COVID-19 vaccinations. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said the CDC will stop recommending the vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women. Joining us now to discuss is Dr. Joel Gator Warsh. He's an integrated and holistic pediatrician and the author of the book Between a Shot and a Hard Place. Dr. Gator, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here. To begin, how significant is this announcement to stop recommending the COVID shot for kids and pregnant women?
I think it's a very significant announcement because it really does set a precedent that we're going to be discussing vaccines more, and we're going to be looking into safety and risk versus benefits and making decisions more based on that in the future. So I think it's a good thing that we're discussing it. I do think it's a very interesting discussion and topic with COVID because you have two kind of worlds of information. Some people think that the COVID vaccine is the best thing ever and save millions of lives and lots of money, and other people think it's the worst thing ever. And so I think we really need to have more discussions in the middle to really, kind of come together. But I think it's an interesting decision that a lot of people are happy about.
And on that note, this does follow a recent Senate hearing where doctors testified about health officials downplaying the adverse effects associated with the COVID-19 vaccines, many noting that children have a very low risk of getting the virus. Given all of that, in your view, do you see this recommendation change being more about upholding medical ethics than, say, outright opposition to vaccines?
I think so. I think there has been an increasing concern around this vaccine, especially as it relates to kids. We definitely know that kids can get sick. Kids certainly can get very sick, but it's rare, as well as pregnant women. But the majority of the world, really most of the world, has focused on high-risk populations, and the U.S. is really one of the last to recommend it for healthy kids. And so this really does bring it in line with the rest of the world. So I think that it's about following up on the research, looking at the most recent data, and trying to come to a more, balanced to vaccination where we're not totally getting rid of it, but not necessarily recommending it for everybody.
And on that note, Dr. Gator, your new book, Between a Shot and a Hard Place, delves into the complex and often controversial landscape of childhood vaccinations. Talk to us about why depoliticizing these issues, giving parents the information and space to have open dialogue for informed decisions is so important.
I think it's vital, and I think we need to be able to discuss everything. Vaccine and the word vaccine shouldn't be something that's controversial or censored. There's no reason why we can't have honest discussions, debates, and really talk about this. Parents have a lot of questions. They're expected and offered many shots, 30 plus shots over the first few years. And a lot of parents have questions about that and concerns. And I think that's a reasonable thing for parents to have. Any good parent is going to have questions about anything they're injecting into their children. But it seems like that conversation has been shut down more and more over the years, especially with the COVID vaccine. And now that we're coming out the pandemic and more parents have questions, I think that it's great that we're starting to open up this discussion. And that's really why I wrote the book. I'm not for or against vaccines. I think we should be having discussion and debate, and people should be making the best decisions for them.
And zooming out a bit here, the HHS announced earlier this month Generation Gold Standard with the goal of developing a universal vaccine to target both current and future respiratory viruses. Now, since the pandemic, we've seen trust in medical agencies decline, which can impact whether people support these vaccine initiatives. What would need to happen for the vast majority of the public to trust a state-backed universal vaccine like this?
I think you would need open, honest conversation and open, honest research. I think it's very important that we don't come from a place of forcing people to do anything. It's giving people information. It's providing research. It's open sourcing that data so people can look at it and really come to the best conclusions for our health. I don't think anybody is against vaccine as a concept. I mean, if you could take a magical pill and never get sick again, or never have your kid get sick again, and there are no side effects, I don't know that many people would be opposed to that. It's just the reality of the world is that these things have side effects and risks, and concerned parents and concerned practitioners really want to understand what those risks are. And I think if we are open to having that discussion and open to having that debate and give that information to the public, then over time we can build that confidence back by not lying to the public, by informing people and having discussions and really coming to the best decisions for us and our kids in the future.
And Dr. Gator, what would a universal vaccine for respiratory viruses mean for the pharmaceutical industry?
I mean, I think that would be wonderful for them. You know, if there was some sort of vaccine that could protect against many or some of the common respiratory illnesses better than we have today, I think that would be great. And again, people do get very sick from some of these things and die. So if there is something that can prevent that, then great. But the question is, at what cost? I'm not opposed to vaccines, but if you take a vaccine but it creates other issues, then that's something that we need to discuss. If it's studied and it's truly safe and it's more effective or more beneficial, then for those individuals that choose to get it, they should be able to get it. But that's where good research comes in, where you can understand the risks and the benefits, and then you can decide for yourself whether that makes sense for you or your family.
And what are you expecting from this HHS, given Kennedy's line of "Make America Healthy Again"?
I think we're going to see a lot of changes over the next few years. I think there's going to be a lot more discussion about health and wellness and prevention. And I certainly think there's going to be a lot more discussions about vaccines. I think it's a priority of that administration, and certainly something that has been a priority for Secretary Kennedy over the years. And it seems that this is something that he is following up on. And so I do think that we're going to see a lot more discussion around this moving forward. But the first step is to obtain more research, and I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to look into the data sets that they have, and they're going to try to see what comes of that information, and then I think we'll get more research from there. So I don't think we know exactly where it's going, but I do think it's very clear that he's open to shaking things up a little bit, and I do think we need a shakeup.
Well, Dr. Joel Gator-Barsh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The U.S. and Argentina are calling on other nations to follow their lead in leaving the World Health Organization. After a meeting between U.S. Health Secretary RFK Jr. and Argentina's President Javier Milei, the two nations are now proposing an alternative to the WHO. NTD's Melina Weisskopf explains the top concerns there and what to know about the new WHO alternative.
The top concerns from Argentina and U.S. officials is that the WHO isn't working in the best interest of the global public. They mainly criticize the way the organization handled the COVID-19 pandemic. In a joint statement just yesterday, health secretaries from both countries said the WHO's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic revealed serious structural and operational shortcomings that undermined global trust. They also said the organization now relies too much on voluntary contributions and has become a political arm rather than dedicated to a science-based approach to health. This is why they say a new science-based leadership in global health is needed. Now, of course, during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were many around the world, especially here in the U.S. and in Congress, that were critical of China's extensive influence in the organization when that COVID-19 pandemic emerged. And what's more, the Health Secretary RFK Jr. said the U.S. funds that organization too heavily, more heavily than other nations, but that it's still bow to political pressure from the CCP.
This all became obvious during the COVID pandemic when the WHO, under pressure from China, suppressed reports at critical junctures of human-to-human transmission and then worked with China to promote the fiction that COVID originated from bats. We want a free international health cooperation from the straitjacket of political interference by corrupting influences of the pharmaceutical companies of adversarial nations and their NGO proxies.
Now, he also said that they're already in talks with other like-minded countries, though he didn't specify how many other countries outside of Argentina are interested in getting involved in this new global health initiative. Additionally, they haven't yet made public an official name for this new global health group. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
French lawmakers have voted in favor of a bill to legalize assisted suicide. The measure would allow terminally ill patients to request life-ending medication. But the bill has sparked controversy in public opinion, with some associations saying it is a dangerous step that promotes suicide. NTD's international correspondent David Vives has the story.
French lawmakers in the National Assembly approved a bill to legalize assisted dying on Tuesday, paving the way for France to become the latest European nation to allow terminally ill people to end their lives. The bill passed with 305 lawmakers voting in favor and 199 against. The vote followed heated debates in Parliament, with National Rally members voicing concerns over the implications of assisted suicide. The decision has been welcomed by some terminally ill patients.
Some would want to carry on to the end. That's perfectly respectable. But there are people like me, with the thousands of messages that I get, who are asking to take their leave whenever they wish.
However, public opinion remains divided. Hundreds gathered at Place de la Concorde on Tuesday night for a candlelight vigil. Protesters rallied under the slogan, "Add life to days when we can't add days to life." Philosopher Damien Leguet, the concern is that the law could open the door to broader applications in the future.
The lawmakers said once we have taken this first step, we will be able to, as has been explicitly stated, in a second or third step, as we've seen in Belgium and the Netherlands, to extend the right indefinitely. So while it seems only 0.3% of people would qualify for assisted suicide now, that number could grow to 5%, 10%, or even 15% in the future.
Jean-Frédéric Poisson, president of the Christian Democratic Party, said the bill has been presented in a biased way to sway public support.
We are being told that the end of our life would be somehow atrocious for people carrying critical illnesses. But it doesn't have to be that way, because we have long since developed palliative care, which provides relief from pain, from insurmountable psychological burdens, and so on. These are things that are experienced every day by thousands of people.
Some critically ill individuals expressed concern that the bill promotes suicide over alternatives and may pressure people into a decision they might not otherwise make. Pascal Morinier, president of the National Confederation of Catholic Families, argued that the bill risks isolating the ill rather than building connections.
The issue of end-of-life care is first and foremost a family issue, rather than a political issue or a case-by-case issue. It is an issue that affects the family. With one's loved ones, with one's relatives, they are the ones who will leave. They are the ones who will depart. I think that members of Parliament have a very theoretical view of things. I would like them to encounter more of the truth of the matter, and I would like them to go and see the simple palliative care facilities, talk to the patients and talk to the doctors.
The bill will be next presented to the Senate for finalization, where it may face a stronger opposition and undergo changes before the final vote next month. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
A new book chronicles the life of Margaret Heckler, an Irish immigrant raised in a boarding house, and her journey to Congress and being chosen by former President Ronald Reagan as HHS Secretary. Tune into our American Dream series to hear insights from the book's author, Heckler's daughter-in-law, Kimberly Heckler, on NTD's Capitol Report with Steve Lance at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming up, conservation work is underway at a museum in Paris. Visitors can witness what it takes to maintain a delicate masterpiece. Stay tuned for that when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Conservation work is underway at a museum in Paris of an iconic painting by Gustave Courbet. Now visitors can witness what it takes to maintain the delicate masterpiece. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more of the vivid detail.
Through this glass window in Paris's Musée d'Orsay, visitors can observe work being done on a 19th century painting by Gustave Courbet, the painter's studio. Restore Agencia Pasquale says it's important for the public to be able to appreciate the process.
I think it is still an unknown and artisanal work, even though today it is a very technical, very scientific job based on a diagnosis, I would say, that comes from the medical field, so a medical diagnosis applied to works. And so I think the public is also asking to know what is happening, why we take a work that is all black, all dark, and then we see it again, much more colorful and fresh.
The restoration will have 3 phases. First comes thinning various paint varnishes. The painting frame is then disassembled for a closer look. The final phase aims to recreate the work's original contrasts.
Regarding Courbet in particular, he is a painter who layers a lot, has a very instinctive, passionate painting style, I would say. And so he has a lot of material that layers, and sometimes the layers do not work well for conservation. And we have many problems. It's, I would say, a complex restoration work.
Jennifer DeSalle is an art historian visiting from North Carolina. She's thrilled about the idea.
I love this because it gets people the opportunity to see that it's worthwhile, it's useful, it's a great idea. And also it's a great opportunity because if it's lasting for a while, people can come back and they can watch the restoration over time. So they can come back and have a new experience.
Maria Jose Trifon, a tourist from Barcelona, appreciates the complexity of the restorer's work.
I have never seen before. How do they do it? It looks so meticulous, requiring all these products. It could give an impression of being easy, but it is so complicated, studying all these layers of painting.
The painstaking project is expected to take 1.5 years to complete. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.